Hello! Just another video, another hobby rambling video. Going on in this case, plastic versus resin versus metal. So there's been a lot of debates recently over the use of plastic, over the use of resin, over the use of metal, over the use of plastic, over the use of resin, over the use of... But which one's better, or which one do you prefer? I kind of like plastic the most, and I'll tell you why. Well, obviously this is kind of what the video's for. Plastic, I believe, works best for me. Paint adheres to it most, which is a good thing and a bad thing, because it's a good thing because you can paint on really easy. It's a bad thing because if you put too much paint on, the detail will get lost so quickly. Kind of the same thing goes for resin, where the paint will stick on, but again, if you put too much on, the detail will get lost easier. Gluing stuff together, plastic's obviously the easiest, then resin, then metal. People try that res stick stuff. I'm sorry, that is resin as far as I'm concerned, so that's why I'm not including that in anything, because I'm just clamping that with resin because it is. Modelling wise, plastic's pretty painting wise with metal, you do that get a bit more crispness in the detail, I will admit that, but it is takes a lot longer to paint, because you are undercoating, then using primers, then using glosses and varnishes and a load of paint to get it just how you want it. And if you don't put enough varnishes on and whatnot, the paint will chip. You need something to protect it, and I've kind of cracked it, but I kind of haven't, because you need a matte varnish first, and then you need a shiny gloss varnish to spray over, because the matte varnish, I don't like matte. It's too flat. It doesn't make the colour stand out. I like the shiny syndrome on the gloss varnish, but personal preference, that's just me. Modelling wise, plastic's pretty easy to work with. You can just chop bits off, stick them to other bits, or make them into even other new bits, convert models however you want. With resin, you can cut easier than plastic, because bits don't break off where you don't want them to break off. It's just snip pretty quick. But resin is a lot more brittle, so it will break a lot easier, which might be what you want or might not be what you want. It depends where you cut it, because if you want to cut, but don't want to cut all the way, because you want to make you want to cut, like, I don't know, a barrel of the gun off, but you want to keep the rest of the gun intact. If the barrel's really... No, that's a bad example. Say you want like half the gun intact, but the front half you want, I don't know, the top half taken off. You cut like, I don't know, in the middle, but you don't want to go too far. But if you cut too far, then the rest of the gun will snap off as well. So it's something you have to look out for. It's probably better to use a junior hacksaw or a handsaw if you're in different places. One of them little ones, like that. If you've never seen one before, I'm imagining a lot of people have. If you want to use them, if you are really young, get someone to help you, because they can be quite sharp. Most people who've got one for workday use, it will be a bit duller, so you'll probably not damage you won't damage yourself with it. But a new one, you probably will cut yourself if you're not careful. You have got a knife. Knives work well for resin, I will say that, but if it's sharp, which comes on to my other argument, you've got to wear some good gloves or have a cutting mat, otherwise it'll damage the surface you work on, or it will cut you, and if it's sharp enough it will hurt a lot and the cut will be massive. I've not had anything too big unless you count that one time at work where I ignored everyone's advice of cutting away from me, so I cut toward me and cut into my thumb, It wasn't deep, but blood did go everywhere, and it was just the case of no one said I told you so, but they did tell me so, and you know, unless you really have to just cut away from yourself if you're cutting anything, that's just a general rule. Metal is a bit like resin if you cut with cutters, because it might not cut how you want it to. Say for instance you want to cut something that's at a slant, but you want to keep some of the slant there. You can try and cut it, but you might slide down, so you might cut a bit more of something you don't want to cut. So you know, there's that. Gluing wise, resin, you need super glue, but it's fairly easy to stick together, so because it's lightweight you can just leave it together and stick. Plastic, again, same thing, but you can use plastic cement glue. If you're using that stuff, be careful, because that will ruin detail like 1.0. Metal, you will definitely need super glue, and on metal I advise using activator because it works really well. Plus you can break it apart with activator. It takes a fair bit of force, or if you drop it, it takes a fair bit of drop, but you can do it. That's not to say activator's crap, it's just a case of how much use of glue and activator. One warning when using activator: do not use spray activator on one bit, then use glue on the same bit. Chances are, when you glue it together, you will ruin the detail of one or both pieces. If you go back to my Mercs first edition videos and look on some of the ISS models, you will notice that a lot of the detail is hideous. It really is hideous. Just go back and look at that video, and that will prove my point of the activator goes on one part, on one piece of a model. The glue goes on the other part of the model. Glue them together, hold them for a few seconds, then if you want, wipe a small smear of glue around the joint, and then a bit of activator just to really hold it together if you want it to just stick. Yeah. Cost wise, this one's a bit weird because it depends on the game you're playing rather than what thing the model's made from. Mercs has gone pretty much full plastic nowadays. Megacon Game, should I say, has gone full plastic with pretty much everything. Mantic has done a lot of plastic. They're still using a slight amount of resin, and some things are metal, mainly things that are one blister pack. They're usually metal. What else? Games Workshop's going towards everything being plastic. Some stuff still using that fine cast, which, as far as I can see, nobody likes that. If you are just coming into Warhammer or 40k and you are buying anything, thinking of buying anything that's fine cast, chances are, if you buy more than one, you will buy one or two things that are fine cast, and at least one of them things will have some sort of defect. Games Workshop seem to think they can get around this idea by releasing liquid green stuff. I don't know if it's the case where you can't ring up complain and they send you a new one. I'm hoping that's still the case, because using that liquid green stuff for its intended purpose ain't working. It's useful for creating filth and disease on rags and clothing and bones and whatnot on your models. Works really well on that if you like undercoat it and then paint on the liquid green stuff. Maybe, I don't know, 1 or 2 coats of liquid green stuff and then paint over it. You get a really nice effect on there. But using it to fill holes that the fine cast have left, nope, not used for that whatsoever. And it's about as much as a tin of normal paint. It's no, not like, it should be texture paint. It ain't what it's meant to do. But anyway, Priority Press, it's not plastic, it's resin. You need super glue, it's resin. It ain't plastic. Don't be fooled by what it says, it's resin. I had some of the Winter Guard, the Kandorian Winter Guard, because I was using them as Imperial Guard veterans, and it said plastic on the box. It ain't plastic, it's resin. You need super glue on it. It ain't plastic. Whatever it says, it's resin. I don't know if I've said that enough, but it's resin. Who else have we got around here? Weird Miniatures. Yes, they used to do metal, but they've now moved on to plastic. So the kind of consensus is a lot of miniatures companies use metal. I mean plastic, but a little bit of resin in between. That being said, though, some of the more higher price games, such as from Mears Miniatures, use plastic or resin, but their resin is good quality. But they do cost a lot. For instance, a squad of about 5 is about 35 quid, and that's with no weapon options. That's just build on the basis. Boomf. I believe that's right. It might be 10 models. It's definitely either 5 or 10. But they are highly detailed, really good looking models where if you paint them up, you don't even need to paint them up well. You just paint them and they look good. Just undercoat, about, I don't know, 2-3 colours, bit of wash here, few brown or grey washes here and there, and boom, job done. They will look good. You know, a bit of paint and whatnot on the base, obviously. Prodos games are 3D printing. Yes, that's resin, and going down the 3D printing route is a option nowadays. It's not cheap. If you look at any of their Warzone Resurrection stuff, it ain't cheap. It's not the most expensive out there, but it's still, by some of the standards like Games Workshop, by Mantic, even by Megacon game standards, it ain't cheap. And that some of the vehicles you can get are hugely expensive, like the Brotherhood Flyer. That is about 50, 60, between 50 and 65 quid. It's not the biggest flyer out there. It looks nice enough, I will grant it that, but it's not the biggest plane out there, and it is limited by the point scale of games, so you do have problems there. But that isn't another option of 3D printing. I have heard in some of their games that they've made, Games Workshop have used 3D printing. I could be wrong on that, but I could be right on that as well. But that's just me. Durability wise, this is an odd one, because why are you dropping your models on purpose? Plastic kind of wins out on that one. If you've used any of the Dust miniatures, oh yeah, they're all plastic by the way. If you've ever used some of the Dust miniatures, if they break, it's parts you can just stick back on even without glue. They just stick on, and it might make it easier to take off and paint underneath, you know, all the gears and mechanisms and detail. So there's that. Then again, with plastic, if you drop, it's like any other miniature. If it's resin, if it's metal, whatever, if you drop it from high enough and the part is glued in such a way and it lands in such a way that it breaks, then it's just going to break regardless. It just depends what it's made of and how many pieces it's going to break into, because if it breaks into a lot of little pieces, chances are you ain't getting that back. But if it breaks into a few big pieces, then, you know, you're not too bad. Unless you're using it in the game at that time, then, yep, you're a bit buggered, I'm afraid. Price. Price isn't really a thing, to be honest. Like I say, it depends on the game you play. rather than the actual substance the model's made out of. So yeah, so put in the comments below, what do you prefer? People prefer metal because of the detail. Some people prefer resin because, again, of the detail, even though it costs a bit more. Some people, like me, prefer plastic because it's easier to put together, and it is kind of the cheapest option of the three. Although with metal, you can put it back to be remoulded to be better quality. Or do you like 3D printing, even though that's resin? So there you go. So that's it. Goodbye for now. Comments below on what you think on this video.